If you're looking for answers about a religion's take on marijuana, they may be tough to find, but there are clues out there. From the Baha'i faith to Taoism, here's what different religions have to say about weed. Unlike many religions, the Baha'i faith is relatively clear about the acceptable use of marijuana and other derivatives like hashish. It's not allowed. The founder of the faith, the Baha'u'llah, didn't directly address marijuana in the Kitab-i-Aqdas, which is the Baha'is' most holy book of laws. However, he did talk about a prohibition of drugs like opium, as well as, quote, any substance that induceth sluggishness and torpor, which most Baha'i assume to include marijuana. His successor, Abdul-Baha, reiterated that stance and went further to call hashish, quote, the worst of all intoxicants.
Maybe I'm high or something, man,
Or maybe you're in the present.
Abdul-Baha preached that smoking hash would cause the user to struggle to connect with God, making it a poor choice for anyone seeking spiritual enlightenment. After the Baha'u'llah and Abdul-Baha, their successor, Shoghi Effendi, also argued that marijuana was incompatible with living a just life. Like Abdul-Baha, Effendi called out hash as a banned drug, comparing it to substances like peyote or LSD. For the Baha'i, the only exception to the kibosh on marijuana use is if it's prescribed by a doctor. That means that Baha'i followers might be in luck with medical marijuana, but recreational use is certainly a no-go. For Catholics wondering whether their religion is compatible with marijuana, for many years it wasn't easy to know. The Catholic Bible never explicitly talks about marijuana or any of its derivatives, leaving many people to wonder just how Jesus may have felt about the plant, if he had any feelings towards it at all. Yet since 1992, when the Catechism of the Catholic Church was finally approved by Pope John Paul II, Catholics have their answer, and it's not pot-friendly. According to paragraph 2291 of the Catechism, the use of any drugs is immoral, and Catholics should abstain from their use. This obviously includes marijuana, with the only exception for therapeutic use. According to some theologians, like Jesuit Father Peter Ryan of the Sacred Heart Major Seminary in Detroit, therapeutic use can include medical marijuana if it's properly prescribed. But that's not the opinion of all theologians. For example, Dr. William Chavey argued that the answer isn't so clear-cut and needs to be studied from a medical standpoint to determine the ethical implications. Still, pretty much all Catholic theologians would agree that recreational pot use is completely off the table under any circumstances. This was made abundantly clear in 2014 by Pope Francis, who made a speech at a conference on drug enforcement about his opposition to the legalization of recreational pot. Considering that even drinking coffee or smoking tobacco is expressly prohibited within the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it should probably come as no surprise that there is a strict embargo on the use of recreational marijuana. Smoking marijuana is considered to be a violation of the Word of Wisdom, which is the health and dietary code many LDS followers live by. As for medical marijuana, things get a little bit trickier. Official church guidance alludes to it being permissible, but only by prescription, and the Church's public statements are even less straightforward. In 2018, the LDS Church said that, while it supported the idea of medical marijuana, it was urging its members to vote against Proposition 2, which was the medical marijuana initiative on the ballot.
The Church does not object to medicinal use of marijuana. What is also clear is we do believe Proposition 2 goes too far.
But Utah did get medical marijuana in 2018, and the LDS Church actually worked with politicians on the bill. It would be a stretch to say that the LDS Church now supports medical marijuana use, but it's not completely against the idea. That doesn't apply to recreational use, for which there are no exceptions. In retrospect, Hinduism is probably one of the most pro-pot religions out there. Unlike many ancient religions, sacred Hindu texts not only mention the use of marijuana, but it actually played an important part in Hindu history. The Atharva Veda considered cannabis a holy plant to be used by anyone looking to purify themselves of sin, sickness, and unhappiness. Even the deity Shiva is said to have used marijuana, which was often consumed in the form of a drink called bhang. Due to marijuana's extensive history within Hinduism and India, its use continues to be widespread today. In fact, There's an exception in the Indian national drug laws that allows for cannabis leaves to be sold and consumed as bhang, and the government has a hand in regulating its sale around the country. Hindu celebrations like Holi and Shivratri involve copious use of bhang among festival goers, but there are actually 3 different types of Hindu marijuana. Bhang is the weakest, charas is the strongest, and ganja sits in the middle. Marijuana has always been an intrinsic part of Hindu culture, and one the faith has embraced wholeheartedly. Sufism is widely known as Islamic mysticism, and while they do worship the Quran, the movement is ascetic and widely distances itself from the rest of the Islamic faith. That includes their feelings on marijuana. Beginning in the 12th century, Sheikh Haidar of the Haidariya order, a prominent Sufi leader, began experimenting with hashish. He was intrigued when he spotted cannabis plants while out walking, and after ingesting it, he recognized its stimulating properties. The use of hashish soon spread amongst the Haidariya Sufis, even as the sheikh told his followers to keep a lid on the magical new secret. But after his death, the word got out, and soon the Haidariya may have been offering marijuana-infused drinks as a substitute for wine, calling it the wine of Haidar. Of all the ways the Sufis use hashish, one of the most popular methods is smoking through a hash pipe, which they call the Nefir-e-Vadat, or trumpet of unity. Many also combine hash and yogurt in a mix called Duge-Vadat, or the drink of unity. Today, some Sufis continue to use hashish, and there are even Sufi shrines where its use is widespread. While the Prophet Muhammad never explicitly mentioned marijuana or hashish in the Quran, it's considered to be an outlawed substance. Muhammad did talk about wine and other intoxicants, which are banned, so most Islamic scholars apply that same reasoning to marijuana and consider it haram, or forbidden. Persian and Iraqi Muslims first began using hashish sometime in the late 800s, and by the 1000s it was becoming popular. Nonetheless, Islamic prohibition on cannabis began as early as the 13th century, when the Mamluk Sultan Baybars I made its use punishable by death. Today, many Middle Eastern countries under Islamic law continue to have extremely severe policies restricting the use of marijuana. The only exception, according to some Islamic scholars, is medicinal marijuana. In 2018, the Fiqh Council of North America issued a statement on medical marijuana, saying that it was permissible with caveats. Generally, marijuana-infused medications are allowed, but only if they don't get the user stoned. At the same time, citing the Hanafi and Shafi'i schools of Islamic law, the Fiqh Council suggested that some level of intoxication is okay, but only if there's no alternative and the medicine is proven to work. So Muslims can use marijuana, they just can't get high.
How do you do that?
According to some interpretations, ancient Jewish scriptures like the Talmud and Hebrew Bible actually reference the cannabis plant. Moreover, many Jewish communities have used marijuana for religious and medical purposes dating back thousands of years. There's even evidence that the ancient Israelites living in the Kingdom of Judah and worshipping at the First Temple of Jerusalem consumed marijuana as part of their religious rituals. Furthermore, while they're not all in agreement, many rabbis consider marijuana to be kosher. In 2013, an Israeli rabbi argued that as long as it was being smoked and not eaten, all marijuana was kosher. That opinion was modified by a different rabbi who claimed that only medical marijuana was kosher. In January 2016, OU Kosher, one of the biggest purveyors of kosher products worldwide, began certifying some medical marijuana products. Some interpretations hold that marijuana is part of a group of foods known as kitniyat that are banned among Ashkenazi Jews on Passover. But a ruling in 2016 by a respected ultra-Orthodox rabbi claimed medical marijuana was exempted from the prohibition and allowed to be used or eaten.
I'm just going to write a prescription for you for 2 huge bags of weed.
In Israel, recreational marijuana has long been illegal, but medical marijuana was legalized in the 1990s. Generally, rabbis hold that medicinal use is okay, especially if it is used for pain reduction, while recreational use isn't. Of all the modern religions today, Rastafarianism probably has the closest connection to marijuana. For Rastas, marijuana, which they often refer to as ganja, is one of the most important herbs on the planet, They interpret the Bible as referencing marijuana multiple times, and many Rastas see smoking ganja as akin to taking the Christian Eucharist. Rastas don't just smoke marijuana, though. They also cook with it and use it as medicine. The use of marijuana among the Rastafari is highly spiritual, and they believe it helps cleanse and clear the mind. It's thought that marijuana was introduced to Rastas in the 19th century by Hindu Indian laborers who used ganja as part of their own religious worship. Within Rastafarianism, marijuana is revered because of its ability to encourage and stimulate peace and togetherness in the community, and they often use it for meditation. They believe it helps reveal one's inner self, and smoking is often done in a large group setting. Sometimes they'll say a prayer while preparing the marijuana to be smoked. And the most popular ways of smoking are as a marijuana cigar or through a water pipe, known as a chalice, chillum, or steamer. After smoking, practitioners typically engage in reasoning sessions, where they attempt to reach higher mental clarity together through conversation. For Rastas, marijuana is no joke. It's a sacrament rather than a recreational drug. Taoism and marijuana have been linked for thousands of years. At first, the Taoists are thought to have rejected the cannabis plant when they came into contact with it in 600 BC. But for whatever reason, that appears to have changed about 7 centuries later, and by AD 100, they had apparently discovered its psychoactive properties. It's unclear exactly how they used marijuana, which may have brought on hallucinations, as ancient literature points to them ingesting cannabis seeds, which are notoriously low in THC. In order to be high enough to have hallucinations, they would have needed to get a lot of THC into their systems, which they likely couldn't have done by eating seeds alone. This suggests they may have found a way to smoke or otherwise ingest the marijuana.
Don't worry, it'll just give us trippier visuals. Buckle up, Buttercup.
There is also something of a cannabis deity among Taoists known as Magu. Magu, which can be translated as hemp, is identified among ancient Taoist texts with the cannabis plant's healing properties, as well as Mount Tai in China, where it's reported that a lot of cannabis plants naturally grow. It's unclear how many religions have cannabis deities, but Magu is most likely unique in that respect, as she certainly adds to the Taoist cannabis intrigue. While most Sikhs don't partake, marijuana is prevalent within the Nihang Sikh community. The Nihangs, or the Immortals, are a group of Sikh warriors who helped fight off invaders from Afghanistan and the Mughal Empire. According to the Tribune India, the Nihangs started using marijuana for medicinal and therapeutic purposes while they were fighting. It helped them heal from injuries, likely by reducing pain, and calmed warriors heading into battle. The Nihangs called their marijuana concoction bang, or sukha, and it consists of cannabis leaves that are eaten. However, the Nihangs haven't fought a battle for almost 175 years, so their continued use of marijuana is controversial. Furthermore, the official Sikh Code of Conduct, or Sikh Rihat Maryada, bans marijuana use because it's intoxicating, and the founder of Sikhism, Guru Nanak, counseled against using substances like marijuana. With these new restrictions, marijuana and Sikhism might be headed for a permanent split, but only time will tell. The cult of Santa Muerte is one of the most mysterious and misunderstood in modern times, but what is widely known is its close relationship with marijuana. The cult dates back centuries, but only recently has it become popular, largely due to its association with narcos.
It began in jails with prisoners, and especially prisoners related to drug dealers.
There are no specific sacred Santa Muerte religious texts that talk about marijuana, but there are many temples and shrines, and plenty of them are connected with pot. Not all followers of Santa Muerte consume marijuana, but those who do are known for using it to interact with the deity. Often, they will pray to Santa Muerte and blow marijuana smoke on a shrine to ensure the prayer will come true. In addition to marijuana, alcohol and other narcotics are also used by worshippers to connect with the deity. Not all Santa Muerte followers use intoxicants, but for many, the two are divinely linked. Buddhism has been pretty clear that marijuana use, at least for recreational purposes, is forbidden. The 5 precepts of Buddhism serve as a moral guide for how a Buddhist should live their life. The 5th of the precepts says that one should refrain from intoxicants that cloud the mind. Contemporary Buddhist leaders continue to ban marijuana use. In a 2014 interview with Time, the Dalai Lama was vehemently against the use of marijuana for recreational purposes, calling it poison. He did express some acceptance of its use on medical grounds, but also suggested that it could lead to brain damage, though he may have been referencing spiritual, not physical matters.
Yeah, it doesn't really sound to me like the Dalai Lama is, a big stoner, or maybe he's just pretending.
In 2022, the National Office of Buddhism in Thailand prohibited Buddhist monks from using marijuana, even though the country had just made it legal. Likewise, monks aren't allowed to grow marijuana at their temples or monasteries, and can only use it with a doctor's prescription.
What do you do for fun?
Use drugs.
Shinto priests and followers have been using marijuana for a long time for its purifying abilities. Priests are said to have used marijuana to ward off evil spirits, often by waving it in the air, though it's unclear whether the weed is lit while they're doing this. Historically, it's played a role in weddings, as brides apparently wore cannabis veils during the ceremonies. The Ise Jingu Shrine, which is one of the most important Shinto destinations in Japan, references marijuana through annual ceremonies known as the Taima, which means cannabis in Japanese. The Ise Jingu is located in the Mie Prefecture, where a group known as the Shinto Association operates. In 2018, they got a license to grow low-THC hemp. They can now grow cannabis for 2 shrines in the prefecture, neither of which is the Ise Jingu, and they use it in spiritual rituals. The Brazilian region of Santo Daime is relatively new, and its connection with marijuana runs deep. Santo Daime first sprung up in the early 1900s after being founded by a man named Raimundo Irene Ossera. It combines elements ranging from folk Catholicism to Indian shamanism. While much of the religion is based around the use of the psychedelic concoction known as ayahuasca, which is what Santo Daime means, marijuana is also used as a spiritual guide, but only for followers, known as daimistas. Daimistas refer to cannabis as Santa Maria, but only one group of them are known to use it widely. In the 1970s, daimistas, under Padre Sebastião, who was a friend of Serra's before his 1971 death, split off from the larger Santo Daime sect and began using marijuana in religious ceremonies in order to have deeper, more spiritual visions. However, among the rest of Santo Daime's followers, marijuana is viewed as a drug. That makes Sebastião's group outsiders, and their affinity for marijuana remains polarizing among Santo Daime worshippers. Zoroastrianism is one of the world's oldest religions, and evidence suggests marijuana played a role in many ancient Zoroastrian practices. The Zendavesta, which is the most sacred book of Zoroastrianism, talks about marijuana in the volume known as the Vendidat. The Vendidat refers to cannabis as bang, a common name for the drug in Asia, and explicitly refers to it as a, quote, good narcotic. Calling it a narcotic implies that Zoroastrians were using it for psychoactive purposes, but that's not definitive.
How do you feel?
Like a slice of butter melting on top of a big old pile of flapjacks.
Outside of scriptural references, it's thought that Zoroastrians may have incorporated marijuana into burial rituals and used it for spiritual purposes. The latter would again point to them having knowledge of its psychoactive effects, but that's just speculation. For members of the Oklevueha Native American Church, or ONAC, cannabis isn't just a drug, it's an important sacrament. ONAC is a Native American religious tradition that uses natural substances like cannabis, psilocybin or hallucinogenic mushrooms, ayahuasca, and peyote in order to gain higher spiritual enlightenment. The founders of the church hold ceremonies where they use marijuana as a medicine, including pipe ceremonies where the medicine is smoked. They are one of the few American groups for whom it's legal to do so. The ONAC is a federally recognized and registered Native American tribe that's exempted from laws that make marijuana federally illegal. Many members have official government ID cards that give them a license to carry plants and other natural substances that would otherwise be deemed against the law. According to their official guidelines, members are allowed to have up to 2 ounces of marijuana for personal use, and they even have a specific guide on how to cultivate it. However, that hasn't stopped the police from arresting some ONAC members on drug charges. even if law enforcement's record of victories in the area is murky. Still, ONAC remains committed to using marijuana as a spiritual and medical sacrament, regardless of the legal risk.